Welcome to Bankole's Nation. I'm your host, Bankole Thompson, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. Coming up, Detroit Water and Sewage Department Executive Director Gary Brown is here to explain why over 200,000 residents received letters in the mail regarding their water. Is Detroit's water safe to drink? We're talking with the man in charge of preserving the sanctity and the integrity of Detroit's water department. And then my interview with Anthony White, the artistic director of the Detroit Youth Choir. The nationally renowned Detroit Youth Choir is here to break it down about how the Youth Choir got to national stardom. And of course, then my analysis regarding the upcoming race for mayor of Detroit in 2025. Who are the candidates and what should Detroiters be looking for? It's all coming up on this week's episode of Bankole's Nation. Stay with us. All right, let's welcome Gary Brown, the Executive Director of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, who recently sent out a letter to residents of the city of Detroit, and many are alarmed, concerned about possibly Detroit water having lead in it. Gary, thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me and for the opportunity to share this information.
Yeah, and I want to go straight to the letter that you sent out. Some people have shared it with me, and they're concerned that Detroit water may have lead in it. I mean, what do you say?
Yeah, so I say that the letter was mandatory by EPA, our federal regulators. They dictated that I send that letter out by November 16th to every household in the city of Detroit. So we sent out more than 225,000 letters. EPA also drafted a template that all water suppliers in the nation was to utilize in order to get the information out in the same format. So they dictated what was in the letter. Where I dropped the ball, quite frankly, is nothing stopped me from putting context around the letter so that people in the city of Detroit would better understand what EPA was trying to do. EPA was trying to first, number one, notify residents that what their material of the lead service line going into their house was made of. And if the utility or water supplier doesn't know, then you have to say unknown. So we sent out 3 different letters. We sent out letters that if we know people have galvanized service lines, they got 1 letter. If we know that they have lead service lines, that was a 2nd letter. But the majority of Detroiters received, which was more than 222,000 people, received a letter saying unknown. We don't know what yours is.
Right.
And when you don't know what the service line is made of, you have to treat it as if it were lead. So that was the first qualification in the letter. Inform people that you either know or you don't know. And of course, when you send a letter to Detroiters and at the top of the heading in big bold letters, it says unknown, there's going to cause a lot of angst.
Yeah.
So then the second part of the letter had to explain what harm lead does to children and to seniors and to people. And so that was another frightening thing to hear. That you've got an unknown pipe coming into your house and it can cause this harm. And then the third part of the letter had to speak to measures that could be taken by homeowners in order to better protect themselves if they don't know what their line is. And again, it was, I think the letter was sterile, and it was a government written letter that I should have put context around so that people understand that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the water. There's nothing that's happened at DWSD that causes lead to go into homes. The water is perfectly fine. However, you should take precaution, and we've identified what those precautions are if in fact you don't know what your line is. And I'll say this, Bankole, because I tell my family, I tell my friends, I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what your line is made out of. If it's lead, if it's copper, if it's even galvanized, you should be doing the same thing.
Right.
And the reason I say that is if you have a new copper line, it's been your lead line's been replaced, your house, the plumbing inside your house, in my house, it's galvanized. The house was built 80 years ago, and we have galvanized pipes all throughout the house. Galvanized pipes will hold particles of lead. So even though you remove the lead service line and put a new copper line in, there are pipes inside that house that require you to spend 3 to 5 minutes flushing the water when you get up in the morning, so that the water that's been stagnant in your home pipes or in your lead service line, if you still have one, that's been sitting there all night while you've been sleeping, you want to flush that out and get fresh water in. So that's why the first thing we ask people to do is flush their system. And I do that every morning. You may know I get up in the morning and I go for a run. So nobody's up in my house at 5 o'clock in the morning. When I got your message this morning about this,
I did send you a text, an early morning text, right?
I waited till 6 or so till I got back from the run. But I take a shower, and when I take a shower, I'm pulling water out of the lead service line that's in my house and flushing new water in. Then I go downstairs to make a cup of coffee, and I noticed the dishwasher wasn't on. So I pushed the start button. Again, we're pulling water out of the pipes inside the home and out of my lead service line, and we're flushing the system. And yeah.
Right.
So you get the point.
Right, I do. So let me ask you this then, because I'm going to come to the lead service lines in terms
Sure.
of placing them. But are you going to send out? Because you've already sent out letters to over 200,000 residents. How do you plan to make this clarification? Because you're now saying that the letter that was sent out did not come with a clear-cut interpretation of what the EPA mandate required you to do.
Yeah, we're working through that right now. The first thing we're going to do is most of the questions and concerns have come through social media, like your podcast.
Right.
And that's where I've got a team of people responding on social media, because that's the bulk of the people coming in are either on Nextdoor, Facebook.
Yep.
That X thing.
Podcast, that's the media.
I'm kind of happy to see that's kind of, people are getting off of that. We're seeing our numbers come down off of that, and they're going to blue sky. So we're going to hit social media really hard, and then we're going to be putting out a new booklet called Water Quality. We put it out every year, and it's 25 pages that explain the lead service line program and have all types of great recommendations on what somebody could do if they have concerns about their water.
Right. I think what you're dealing with, the water department, which is such an important necessity ingredient in the quality of life of people in the city of Detroit or any community, I think just the idea that there could be lead gives them a flashback to Flint, Michigan. And we saw what happened in Flint, Michigan. And I think that also came up in social media. Are we about to become the next Flint, Michigan? How do you respond as head of the water department?
That's a fair question. So let's look at what happened in Flint. They came off of DWSD's water. And for 20 years, the last 10 years I've been in charge of DWSD, we have not exceeded the federal guidelines for safe water. We have not. Flint decided to come off of DWSD's water and do it themselves. And they did not use an ingredient that we have always used, orthophosphate, that will coat the line, the lead service line, and protect it from leaching lead into someone's home. it was as simple as that it's not as simple as that totally for Flint. Flint was a bigger problem than that because of the people who made these decisions, but they didn't use that protective agent in order to protect their lives. We have never discontinued using it, and we've asked the Great Lakes Water Authority to do a study and see if they can safely increase the dosage of orthophosphate in order to even improve the protection that we're providing to Detroiters without causing a safety concern. And their studies say that they can, and they've already done that. And so we're confident that the lines are protected. Again, I live in a house for 35 years that has a 1.5-inch lead service line coming into my home. I have a 3-year-old grandson that lives there, an 89-year-old mother-in-law that lives there, a senior, super senior. And so if I thought for a minute that the water was not safe, I would have replaced that line. But I'm confident that my line, like all the lines in the city of Detroit, are safe. However, if you have a concern, there are precautions that you should take in order to make sure your family's safe.
So you indicated that we have some lead service lines that needs to be replaced.
We have 80,000.
80,000 lead service lines. And so 80,000, when you translate that into how many homes are we talking about?
80,000.
80,000 homes.
So we have.
So you can tell I'm not an engineer, but
yeah, let me give you the numbers.
Sure.
So we have 300,000 residential accounts, approximately, residential and some daycare centers and small commercial businesses that could have a lead service line, 300,000. We know that we have 80,000 of them that have lead service lines, and we know that we have 20,000 that we don't know what they are. But we make the assumption they're lead. So let's say that they are lead, they'll all be lead. So that's 100,000 lines that need to be replaced. I'm replacing 10,000 a year. We did 10,000 this year. Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, they gave us more than $95 million to jumpstart our removal of lead service lines in the city of Detroit. So it's $100 million a year for 10 years. That's a $1 billion project over the 10-year project. I cannot pass that cost on to ratepayers, especially those that are below poverty. And so we need assistance from the federal government or the state in order to fund the project so that the dollars don't have to be passed into rates in the next year.
Which comes to my next question. What is the urgency, though, for these lead service lines to be replaced? And have you talked to the state of Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, about this issue?
Well, we certainly talked to Eagle, which is her agent. Yeah, it's the regulatory agency that allows me to operate under a permit. And I went to Eagle, and in November 1st, the application period closed, and I applied for 5 $20 million grants, a total of $100 million, in order to continue the project going into next year. We won't be notified until later into next year whether or not we're going to receive everything that we asked for. But again, this is an unfunded mandate from the federal government to remove 10,000 lines a year for 10 years. These are private service lines that are owned by the homeowner, not by DWSD. At least half of it is the private side of the line. And so you can't ask me to pass on an unfunded mandate to fix private property without funding that. And so I've said for the last 5 years, I want to go faster at getting the lines out, but you have to fund it. We can't pass this cost on to ratepayers.
So have you gotten any signal from the state of Michigan about how they're coming on that, how they're going to land on your proposal, on your application?
Well, I do know that from the state that no one in this state or this region or in the Midwest is replacing more service lines than DWSD. And so dollars that were allocated through ARPA or the Buy Infrastructure Law, the Biden dollars. Biden put $15 billion in play for the nation to be able to remove lead service lines. And then Michigan gets a slice of that money, and then it allocates it to all the cities, counties, municipalities, water suppliers in Michigan. We know that a lot of communities won't be able to spend their money. And so we're hoping that once that money gets encumbered, because ARPA dollars, if you don't spend them by the end of next year,
You have to return them.
they'll have to be returned. And we're saying we have the capacity in the city of Detroit. I have hired and trained people to remove lead service lines. I've brought in contractors from outside the state. I'm using contractors that are hiring Detroiters inside the state. We have the capacity. We can go fast. We can do, I've spent this year alone more than $100 million on removing 10,000 lines. Nobody in the country is doing it at that pace. Let us have those dollars that others have not been able to spend.
It would make sense to get it from the state, because I remember when Highland Park had their water crisis, some of us publicly advocated for Highland Park to have funding. $20 million went to Highland Park. Now you have an outgoing Democratic legislature. Wouldn't this be an important Christmas package for the city of Detroit residents to get this out of the way?
Absolutely. And as you know, with the new federal administration,
right,
the Trump administration campaigned on the fact that he was going to cut regulations, which means they're going to go into EPA and they're going to gut it. They're going to gut it. So EPA is going to, this is Gary Brown's belief, and right. Most of the people in the water utility business believe this, that they will stop managing the lead and copper rule at the federal level, and they'll send it all back to the states and tell the states, you manage the program. Well, in doing that, that will absolve them of funding this unfunded mandate. And right. So it's going to fall on the states to be able to help support not only Detroit, Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County. These letters went out. They went out all over the nation. Yeah. I was reading in the Dallas Observer this morning, the same issues we had with our letter, confusing people about the quality of the water, is happening in Dallas. And so Dallas doesn't even have lead service lines, but they were required to send out this letter. So when you put these unfunded mandates on cities, you have to look at the affordability issues, that we have a poverty level that's high enough to support funding from the state to be able to help. And in the past, they've been willing to do it. But I like your idea. I mean, by Christmas, let's wrap this thing up with a bow, allocate the money so that we can budget it for next year, and we can tell our contractors, don't go to other cities to do this. We have the dollars to continue the work.
Right. All right, and finally, before I let you go, clearly there is no lead in Detroit's water, according to Gary Brown, director of the water department, correct?
No, there's no lead in the water at all. There's no lead.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for giving me the time to explain it. I appreciate it a lot.
All right.
I'm not on my parents' health insurance anymore, and I work for myself doing a bit of everything. So I found a plan for just $34 a month.
All plans cover doctor visits, prescriptions, emergency care, and more. Healthcare.gov is here for you. Enroll by December 15th.
All right, let's welcome Anthony White, the artistic director of the world-renowned Detroit Youth Choir. You see them all over the world, all over the country, and of course here in the city of Detroit. Anthony, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me. What do I call you? Like, what's your short name?
I don't have a short name, brother. Just call me Bankole. Don't call me Mr. Thompson. Just Bankole.
Bankole. Yeah, there we go. And
okay,
go ahead.
So let me begin though, because you just told me in the green room before we came on live about the fact that the Detroit Youth Choir Disney Plus has been nominated for some
IDA award.
Yeah, the IDA award. Let's talk about that.
Well, we've been shopping our episodes and our show ideas. Actually, Blumhouse Productions has been shopping us around, and they gave us some bad news earlier in the week and said that our scripted show has not been picked up yet. However, our docuseries is still live on Disney Plus. And the thing about it is I was really hoping for that scripted show because the scripted show was supposed to be like a Cosby show or like a different world,
Right.
like
Sitcom,
how
yeah.
the shows, how the shows were back in the day.
Right.
And they said it, nobody picked them up. However, the same guy, Michael Seitzman, that just told me about we can't get the show picked up, just told me about our docuseries on Disney has been nominated for an IDA award. I don't know anything about those awards, but that's he said it's a big deal,
right,
in the world of like documentaries. So I just want to give it up to our DYC staff, team, and young people for actually being a part of this journey, man.
Right.
DYC is it's like a lifestyle now.
Which is what I really want to talk about because I've seen you perform at different various levels. In fact,
yeah.
I remember 2 years ago I was emceeing the Macomb County Habitat for Humanity annual gala in Macomb County, and you guys, I mean, you just lit that room up, and people were just on their feet because so much that you've been. I want to talk about that in terms of what goes through. The production, if you will, of the extraordinary performances of the Detroit Youth Choir. You as the artistic director, what goes through that? Tell us how you prepare the meal.
Well, it's like the Detroit Youth Choir is a concept.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is bridge the gap between, regular standstill, I'm in school, I'm in high school, I'm in college type choirs with the entertainment industry. And what I've been able to do is bridge that gap. So I'm bringing youth choir, and we're not a gospel choir. So I'm bringing in the youth choir concept along with the entertainment aspect and putting them together. And I think that's what the formula is with the Detroit Youth Choir. But the way we do it is such a scientific way. We kind of zero in on the fun factor of performing arts.
Right.
And
when you can tell the kids are having fun when they're performing. Well, if you're watching them, you're having fun yourself. Go ahead.
Yes. And it's like from the time I took over the choir, I was like, these kids, we got to move. We got to dance. And this was like about 25 years ago. And I knew that as a young person that these kids have to dance, they have to move, they have to entertain instead of just standing there like statues. Like, who want to come and see a bunch of kids just standing there like statues unless you have to,
right,
as a parent or as a uncle or auntie or something. But we want to give the audience something that they never seen a choir do. You never seen a choir get on a big stage like America's Got Talent and just kill it like that, like we did 5 years ago. And now every choir want to do that. And I just want to give a big shout out to the other choirs because it takes a lot of guts to kind of do what we do, and if they're doing it, my hats is off to them. But there's no other like the Detroit Youth Choir.
Well, and I think a lot of people watching this podcast and listening to it will agree with you that you have definitely shoot up to the apex of national musical performance. The fact that you're so sought after. And given, but also the issue that the other side to this is the fact that you're able to discover talent among these young people. Talk about that though, because sometimes people think that to be part of an A-list choir or a national renowned choir, you should have perhaps won the Nobel Peace Prize in music
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But you have these young people from different diverse backgrounds,
Mhm.
all with the common denominator is that they're talented. Talk about just the significance for you in being able to realize and identify these talents among these young people.
Well, I have a gift that the Lord gave me to to sense or to tell if these, what kid has talent, what kid don't have talent.
Mhm.
Ever since I was young, I'm able to tell, oh, this person can't dance. Oh,
Mhm.
this person can sing. This person can't sing.
Mhm.
So I'm able to tell what kind of young people is for our organization.
Mhm.
And what we do, we have two auditions a year.
Okay.
And we're able to sit back and kind of analyze these young people as they walk in.
Mhm.
So if someone gets up there and I feel a vibe from them
Mhm.
that they won't be able to last because it's a lot of work.
You have a discernment.
Yeah, a discernment. That's what I'm saying. God has given me the discernment
Mhm.
to kind of take apart the talent skills of young people.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what brought us to having a three choir organization because we have three choirs. We
Okay.
have the Limelight, which is our younger choir. We have Center Stage, which is our middle choir, and we also have Prime Time, which is our top choir.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to be in prime time,
Of course.
but because that's the choir that be on TV, the one
Right,
that be
right.
music videos. So my discernment has led us to where we can put these young people in these different various choirs to be successful.
Mhm.
Now, the good thing about having three choirs is that you can have a choir in Africa
Mhm.
where we went to Nairobi,
Mhm.
and you can have another choir in Detroit at the NFL draft
Mhm.
on the same day or at the same time. That's one of our biggest um, I think that's one of our biggest accomplishments
Mhm.
since we've had our tier system.
Mhm.
And the kids are actually developing. So we not only have a choir, we
Mhm.
have a youth development organization. And that's what I really want people to understand. Like DYC is not just your normal choir. We are a youth development organization.
That is so important though, because I think sometimes people look at choral groups,
Yeah.
choirs, and musical groups as simply, a group of people banding together to sing. But you're saying this, this effort or this undertaking helps, develop their skills in many other ways.
Right.
So tell
Right.
me what is a challenge for you though at this point, because you preside over a very, very successful musical choral cultural group like the
Yeah.
DYC.
Yes. My biggest challenge really is finding the right staff with the love in their hearts,
Mhm.
just like I have, um, to kind of carry on a legacy.
Okay.
Because as you can see, I'm getting older, I'm a little grayer. I still have my youth in me, but
You
I'm
still
getting
got a lot of gas in the tank, brother.
yeah, and I'm trying to find like who's the next.
Right,
Who's
right.
the next this, who's the next that.
Mhm.
So I want to be able to step back and kind of relax while our directors and while our staff is kind of taking control.
Mhm.
However, it's kind of difficult to find those people, especially in
So, so it's very interesting you are saying this to me, because a lot of people, you know, and I take it that you and I are pretty much around the same age. A lot
yes,
of people of our age group, when
mhm,
they are at the apex, at the height of stardom, they don't
yes,
think about succession plan in terms of who's coming next behind us,
yeah,
because they're expecting to be there for the next 300 years, and which is
yeah.
not the case. They want to be taken away on an on
On
a
a stretcher,
on a
right?
stretcher and all of that. So, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you're talking about the need to begin, because to
yeah,
to build to get the requisite people, your group. That way they can carry on what you started. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and everybody wants to see Mr. White when I show up to performances.
Oh yeah, of course.
White is Mr. White here? Is Mr. White there? But I want the people to understand that we have other directors that's part of our organization. We have a young man, Ryan. You have another one, Joshua. You have a young lady, Miss Crystal. You have Mr. Darius Washington. Those are all of my choir directors. So you might see Mr. White, and you might see them. But I'm just trying to figure out with my heart, like who to entrust with our organization as we move forward, because I would love to step back one day and just handle the business because there's a lot of money out there that we're not getting because I'm on the front lines of the choir. Right. Because it's kind of hard and difficult to give my choir up to just anybody.
Right.
But on the contrary, our young people is in great hands because our staff is amazing. They know what they're doing. And it's not just Mr. White. It's also a whole slew of other people. But we just want the maximum out of our youth. I would love 300 kids one day in our organization, but I don't know if the young people are scared or intimidated. They don't show up at these auditions like they should. But we do have a great host of young people in our choir that could possibly take it further and further every year,
Right.
And we're always pushing the envelope because I believe that this youth choir is the voice of our young people, especially when it comes to music. If you even listen to our albums, we just dropped the album called Equations. And Equations is like the voice of these young people that's going through relationships, problems at home, loneliness. You never hear a young person. We have a song called Lonely Road. You never hear about a young person talk about them being lonely. We think of young people that's energetic.
Right, having too much on their plate.
You know what I'm saying? But sometimes they get lonely just like how we get lonely as adults.
Right. Yeah.
So I implore people to listen to our album. It's on all audio outlets. It's called Equations, Detroit Youth Choir Equations. Yep.
I want to talk about, you have a Christmas performance coming up. I want to talk about that. But before we get to that, though, I want to talk about just the pride that the Detroit Youth Choir brings to the city of Detroit.
Yes.
On the youth choir under your leadership is a hometown hero. And there's nowhere you can go, nowhere in this city you can go in Detroit where you mention the youth choir and Detroit youth choir, people don't smile. Everybody, I mean, they love it. It's like when people show up at events and the youth choir is performing, it's like a big treat. They're like, wow, okay, that's like the climax of what they're looking for.
Yeah, everybody know DYC. I personally feel that a lot of people are just not hearing about us. If you ask the common Detroiter, they know who DYC is. And if you don't know who the Detroit Youth Choir is, they'll say, "You living under a rock or something?" They'll say something like
true.
Because we're constantly on TV, we're constantly doing something, and that's my job. My job is to get these young people on TV and sing. And I think I've done a great job at that. We have a couple of things coming up. Like you said, the Christmas show.
Yeah.
We also have a trip to Vegas in January with one of the choirs. We also have a slew of performances in 2025. And one of our biggest supporters is about to step down as mayor, Mayor Duggan. I just want to give him his flowers. But who's ever coming in next as mayor, I want DYC at the top of their list, of things, because we need a home. We need a new headquarters. So I'm imploring who's ever listening to this podcast that we are looking for a new location for our organization, because I think we're growing. We're constantly growing, and we need space. As of right now, we're on the campus of Marygrove College,
Right.
and that's becoming, they put us in a temporary spot.
But you need a permanent location where
Yeah,
you
we
that is
need
your home, right?
yeah, we need like the Avengers Tower in the city. Like the Avengers had
Right.
that tower with the
Uh-huh.
big eight. We need a tower downtown Detroit with a big DYC logo
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
on the tower for our headquarters. So if anybody out there listening, we really, 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 really need a home for our organization. But in the meantime, we are at on the campus of Marygrove College, and we're doing pretty good. Doing
Right.
pretty.
So,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. You've done so many performances. When you
Yes.
look back, let's go through your recollection, or let's go through go down memory lane. Uh, which performances would you say are among the most memorable for you as the artistic director?
Of course, America's Got Talent
Right.
is number one, and Carnegie Hall is like number two. So America's Got Talent, their AGT is like our family.
Hmm.
So now we go back whenever they call. I think we're about to go back again um, in the next season, season 20,
Okay.
because they just had us at the end of season 19.
Okay.
So they're going to bring us back probably in this next coming up season of AGT.
Mhm.
So in the Carnegie Hall experience was the highlight of the docuseries. If nobody's seen it, I'm just going to throw it out there that Carnegie Hall is like um our climax in that series. So those two performances was legendary. Um, it's all about the young people though.
Right. Yeah.
Whenever or wherever they're having fun, I'm happy. I feel that I've already seen a lot.
Yeah.
So if our young people get to go to New York, LA, Vegas, uh, Africa, UK, if our kids get to do all of that, I'm happy. We just want people to invite us so we can get those opportunities. But those are the two top memorable and we did one in Florida as well. Florida, Orlando
Okay.
for the DECA organization.
Okay.
That was a great performance because they treated the kids to Universal Studios,
Oh, nice.
you know. Um, so those are some of the biggest highlights of my career.
Right. Right. Well, and the other side for you, though, on a personal note for you, the question I want to ask is, to be
Mhm.
able to work with so many kids and
Yeah.
and to enable them to be so successful in using
Yes.
their talents, that must mean a lot for you.
Yeah, and I'm looking back and I got so many kids in college, right? So many young people. And I'm calling them while they're in school and I'm like, "So how you like college?"
Mhm.
They're like, "Yeah, Mr. White, it is what you said it was." And
Right.
I'm glad I had DYC to help me through my year in college or my years in
Mhm.
college. And that's all of the reward to me.
Right.
Uh, you know, do I the biggest question everybody want to know is, do I get compensated for being the director for the
Right.
youth? Yes, of course. This is my full-time job.
Of course. Yeah.
And I had to quit my teaching job to actually do DYC full time so I can be on podcasts
Mhm.
like this during the
Right.
day with you. Because this is a great tool to use for promotion and everything. So I just want to give
Podcast is the
you,
future. Yeah.
yeah, I just want to give you a clap, a hand clap,
Thank you.
because this is the future. And I love doing podcasts. I wish people would invite me on more. And thank you
Well,
for
you have a standing invitation here, brother. So
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I actually was the co-host for a week on WDIV with Tati.
nice.
So I
Nice.
kind of know how to get in front of the camera sometimes
Right.
and do my thing.
Right. Right. So you get calls from your kids when they're in college, and
Oh
they
yeah.
basically reminiscing what you've told them while they were in DYC.
Yeah, they love the information that we pour into them is priceless. Like all of our young people pay a registration fee to be in DYC, but that registration fee is not enough money compared to the knowledge that we install in these young people. So, for example, we have a lot of young people that go to Detroit public schools.
Right.
And when they come to their choirs inside the school, the teachers are like, wow, they're already prepared. Yeah, they're prepared because they coming through DYC first.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
DYC in the house.
Yeah, like, if they come through our program, we're going to get them ready for big time stuff.
Right, right.
The only thing I don't like is when the kids go to the choirs in the high school, they say, oh man, the director in the high school got them ready. But what about the preparation that we put into the young people before they got to that high school? That's the only thing that kind of, gets up under my skin. But I mean, shout out to
you want your credit.
yeah, because look, we put in hours with these young people, man. Like, first of all, guys our age don't want to work with kids.
That is true. A lot of
let me just put that on the table. Let me just put that on the table. A lot of men our age is like, oh no, I'm not, no way.
Yeah.
But when you see a young black male, well, I was young at one point. When you see a young black
You're
male,
still young, brother. So
man, I'm like in my mid-40s, you know what I'm saying? But
we're around the same age, though. We're still I consider myself still young, but go ahead. So
well, when you see a young black man working with kids, first of all, it's extraordinary.
Right.
It's kind of inspirational because you're like, wow, you a black man and you have your family and you still want to deal with these kids. And remember, we also have the kids' parents, right? So you got to not only deal with the young person, you got to deal with the student's parents. So I don't know how I do it. I've been doing this so long, it's kind of like the back of my hand.
Right.
But a normal man my age do not want to work with kids, period. Especially in the capacity where I do.
Right. It's very demanding. So let's do a timeline here. Where do you see DYC in the next decade, in the next 10 years? Where do you want this organization that has had so much, national notoriety? Where do you want to be in the next 10 years?
Well,
you talk about having your own home.
Yes.
But outside of that, where do you see DYC in the next 10 years?
Well, I want to see us flourishing with grant money, number one. I want to see us with our own building somewhere downtown with the DYC logo on top. Maybe it don't have to be downtown. Maybe it can be on the outskirts. But I want to see us with a building on with a logo on the building like the Avengers. I also want to see our young people explore the world a little bit more. I would love for them to go to Australia, the UK tour, Amsterdam. I want to see them go over to Israel, and I want to see them travel the world. I also want to see, a nice, solid staff of people to work up under us that understands the importance of sacrifice. It's not all about the money sometimes. It's not all about that. I just want people to do it for the love. Because when you do things for the love, that's when a lot of blessings come upon you, So that's where I kind of see DYC in the next 10 years. And also I want to see us at 500 young people yearly, like a big cycle of kids all the time.
Right.
And I want to be known as one of the best youth choirs next to the Boys Choir of Harlem, the former world-renowned Boys Choir of Harlem. I want us to be the go-to choir when people come in people want to have concerts.
They have big events and all of that.
Yeah, I want us to be that first name. I don't want us to be down there name number 7 and name number 8. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So on a final note, what do you hear from the kids once they come into the choir and you recruit them? You've done the audition and all of that, and again the training and so forth. Are there any things that they express surprise at? Like, I mean, do they come in thinking differently from what they get from you?
Yes.
What kind of feedback you get from them?
Well, they come in and they say, "Man, it's hard work." And I tell them, I say, "Yeah, DYC is really hard work. These kids that you see on TV,
Right.
they're not here playing around.
Exactly.
You know, they're here working hard, man. I mean, they eating it up, as they
Right.
say. They eating the floor up. They eating the dance floor up. They eating the choir music up. So if you are a young person out there wanting to be a part, you have to work. Like I'm a big advocate for hard work makes the dream work. You know what I'm saying? And remember, when we went to America's Got Talent, we didn't take our best singers. We didn't take our best young people. We took the kids that we had
At the time, yeah.
at the time and we made it work. And they turned out to be like stellar performers. Like you would never believe, like the quiet girl over there, oh yeah, she's doing a solo now. The boy over there who never talked, now he's the head of his college choir now, you know.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, like the things that we bring up out of kids, I try to just give them a little nugget of knowledge.
Right.
I let them know everybody is not a soloist. Everybody can't lead a song. I tell the kids that I was a background singer. I used to be in the back row. And now I'm the director. You know, so there's no telling like what these kids are capable of.
Right. That's true. That is true.
Yes.
Now, well, thank you so much for being here, Anthony White. I appreciate you for talking to us.
Anytime. I appreciate you, man, and keep me in mind because we have a lot coming up, and I'll send you some flyers as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
So that was sheer panic. I could look out my window and see the current. There was water coming from underneath my door. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped in my apartment. It was scary. I thought I was going to die. After living in Florida for 50 years, I have never seen anything like this. This was the worst storm yet. So I came here and lo and behold, there was the trailer outside with the Red Cross and the signs, and I walked in and they were immediately wonderful to me. They gave me water, they gave you blankets, anything that you need. A safe, clean place. The meals twice a day are amazing. I couldn't be happier. The guys who are in the facility right now, the Red Cross team, they have been amazing. They have bent over backwards to make sure that we have enough to eat, make sure that we have enough to drink, in any way that they can accommodate us. And that if there's one thing that I can pass on to people, you call the Red Cross. They would take care of you. The American Red Cross does it right.
Welcome back to Bankole's Nation. I'm Bankole Thompson. Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan recently announced that he's not going to seek a fourth term in office, meaning next year he wouldn't be running for re-election. Mayor Duggan, we don't know what his political plans are. Some are already saying that he might be running for governor of Michigan. That is not clear. That has not been confirmed. It has not been approved. And of course, it's up to the mayor to explain what his next political move is. But the fact that the mayor indicated recently that he does not plan on seeking another term in office as mayor of Detroit that has potentially opened the floodgates for what is expected to be a litany of candidates who are going to be throwing their hat in the ring to become the next mayor of Detroit. So we're expecting a crowded field of candidates, hopefully at the beginning of the year in 2025, of individuals who would be positioning themselves to become the next mayor. Now, if you've been a long-time observer of Detroit politics and have covered Detroit like I've done over the years, you would know that becoming mayor of Detroit is a great undertaking. It is certainly one that is not an easy task and requires more than just a name recognition, requires more than just being able to say, well, I can do the job. And I think at this point, while there are only a few candidates who have declared their intention of looking at the possibility of running for the mayorship of Detroit, I think only so far 2 candidates have indicated publicly that they're looking at that possibility. Exploring that is Mary Sheffield, the president of the Detroit City Council, and Sontil Jenkins, a former member of the Detroit City Council. So far, nobody has officially expressed any intention of looking into the mayor's race. Some names have been thrown around, but we're waiting to see who else is jumping in. As like I indicated, this is going to be a crowded field of candidates, and Detroiters have to be aware. Something that I've written about a number of times is that look at the platform of the candidates, look at what they're offering, look at their programs, look at their record, look at whether these candidates actually can deliver. Whether a particular candidate can actually deliver on their promises. So what is their history of delivering on promises, and what is their history of backtracking on their promises, and what have they done lately, and do they have that kind of what I call a galvanizing the propensity to galvanize mass movements and so forth to really run an effective campaign. There's so much that goes into campaigns. There's so much that goes into becoming the mayor of Detroit. And this is going to be one of the biggest stories in the city of Detroit next year. And right now, I know that there are folk who are talking with individuals, campaign veterans, and trying to figure out what the move should be. And there are individuals who are still deciding on whether they want to run or not. And there are folk who are looking at whether this field of candidates would actually expand. Some would argue that the more we have, the merrier it is. That way people have choices to pick from. That way people are not just confined to a small pool of candidates. But of course, that also has its own pros and cons. But what I'm looking for, though, in 2025 is a candidate who has the passion, who has compassion, who has demonstrated that they want to go to bat for those who are of the greatest need, because the recovery of Detroit under Mayor Mike Duggan, no matter how it's been hailed by a lot of people, the mayor has done a good job. He's revitalized the city. There's still some gaps in the city of Detroit. There's still the challenges of what I call income inequality. There's the vexing issue of poverty, which has rendered many people to what I call a state of permanent underclass, something that I've talked about. And if you followed my work, you would know that I have been perhaps the most notable critique or the most notable critic of the recovery of Detroit in the mainstream media. I have challenged on many occasions and numerous times the Duggan administration to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. I have on numerous occasions put the spotlight on the Duggan administration to do more than just what they were issuing in press releases, and whether it had to do with the demolition contracts and some other issues that have played out throughout his entire time in office as mayor. We have publicly challenged this administration to do more and to go the extra mile for the list of these and those who are confined to the perennial underclass status. That said, as the mayor begins to wind down the end of his political chapter in Detroit as mayor, that opens an opportunity to look at a new chapter in Detroit's mayorship, which means looking for the candidate with the requisite knowledge, the requisite intellect, the requisite compassion and passion, courage and boldness, and one who would be able to go the extra mile, and not to say, well, my hands are tied, but one who will be able to go the extra mile and to bring resources and bring relief to the thousands of Detroiters, some of whom have been nothing but spectators to the recovery of the city. When we look at the recovery of Detroit, much has been done, but at the same time, it could be argued, and I've argued that publicly, that some of that revitalization was confined to the downtown Detroit area. Downtown Detroit became what I call, in my Detroit news columns, I've called it a Taj Mahal. It was only in his third term in office that Mike Duggan began listening to some of us and began expanding this economic revitalization to the neighborhoods of Detroit, where the need is greatest. So the next mayor will have to pick up from that and begin to address seriously the gaps in this revitalization, and begin to address the very core issue of poverty and income inequality, which is the issue that impacts a lot of people in Detroit. So with the mayor's race coming up in 2025, expect to be flooded with a lot of literature, expect to be flooded with sound bites, expect to be flooded with slick slogans, expect to be flooded with all kinds of information. But suddenly the onus is on Detroiters to be able to decipher fact from fiction, to be able to decipher the character of the candidates, what they bring to the table of political equity, whether they have the heft and the political audacity, the temerity, and to be able, like I indicated, to go the extra mile for Detroiters and those who are caught up in the crucible of inequality. On this podcast, on this weekly national podcast, we're going to be following the mayor's race very closely, and certainly as well as the governor's race, but we're going to be providing analysis and commentary and interviews as we march into 2025. So you can count on this platform as one of those agencies of knowledge, if you will, that will bring you what you need to know and what is happening on the ground. Thank you so much for being here on this week's episode of Bankole's Nation. I'll see you another time with more episodes.